And I guess we are live. Uh, I did the spiritual warfare for our evil friends before I did the live stream, so we don't have to worry, I don't think, about that. Um, okay, so today we're going to talk about what happened to Trump and his tariffs, which is an interesting situation. It's going to require a pretty decent discussion. A federal appellate court ruled, not a regular low-level court, an appeals court, um, said that Trump's tariffs are not lawful or illegal. Why? Oh, they're not prosecuting him or anything. Why? Because the power to raise taxes and tariffs is given in the Constitution to the Congress, not the President. And I don't think Trump could get out of this. So the appellate court, just to give you the brief synopsis and then we'll get into it deeper, said they were not going to enforce this ruling until like mid-October or sometime in October, to give Trump time to make an appeal to the Supreme Court. It seems to me they likely spoke to the Supreme Court about this, my opinion. And they didn't want to burden the Supreme Court with requests by Trump for emergency hearings, post haste. So they passed their ruling, but it doesn't go into effect for a reasonable period of time. I think it's probably about 6 weeks, giving Trump a chance to file an appeal with the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to reverse. And in the scriptures it says ruler fighting ruler, and I think this is a prime example of that. Supreme Court are rulers. There's 3 so-called rulers in the United States government. One is the Congress, the legislative branch. The second is the executive branch, the president. And the third is the judicial branch, the Supreme Court and the other courts, the federal courts, especially appellate courts. So Trump's had a real rough time with the courts, and I think that's ruler fighting ruler. I feel rather strongly that this is going to hurt. Well, I don't think the Supreme Court could just say, yeah, let Trump do this, it's okay, because it's in the Constitution. And Trump knows that. Now, the other side effect of this, and I don't want to stay on this too much right this minute, later we will, is it's going to postpone a lot of purchases and things like that, because people are going to be waiting for the tariffs to go away. Now, when the tariffs go away, do they go back to where they were before Trump's tariff executive orders came into effect? I believe so. What happens is Trump's tariff rulings, which were not voted on by Congress, done by him by executive order, I believe, are dissolved. They're just like they were never there. And that means what was there before comes back. So then people will start buying, and it'll help the foreign countries, and it's not going to do that much for America. But that's what happened. We could talk all day long about, oh, this is good for America, this is bad for America, and anything Trump does, I can tell you is going to be bad for America because he's in a snare. It's written in the Bible. I think it's Jeremiah 50, verse 24. Nothing's going to work for him, okay? And that's the reality. So anyway, we can bang our heads against the wall about debating if this was good, bad, or indifferent. And we, there's two sides of this. In some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad, but it looks like it's getting reversed. And the courts seem to be relatively leaving him alone with his immigration practices. But this they're not pleased with. And it's causing catastrophic economic problems in America, by the way. And what Trump essentially did was give everybody a tax increase with the tariffs because the people pay it. And the other thing he did was raise the cost of goods sold, which means inflation, lower standard of living. Trump is out for the rich. People don't know this. They fail to believe it. They think he's there to help the working stiff. You gotta be kidding me. How could you still believe that? Remember him and Elon Musk? We're gonna audit the Fort Knox. Did they ever audit Fort Knox? Does he ever talk about it? No. Why? Your guess is as good as mine, but that ain't a symptom of a good president. That's another con man. Period. In his first term, he said he was going to get rid of Obamacare. He never did it. Is he getting rid of Obamacare now? No. Somebody I know is just coming of age for American, what do they call it? Medicare? And to get the supplemental and the insurance for the pharmaceuticals, the prescriptions, it's costing this person about $800 a month. How about that? And you still got your co-pays. If you go into the hospital, it's like 80%. So you could go into the hospital and boom, like that, you could run up a $200,000 bill. Easy steezy. Okay? And you got $40,000 on your head, plus prescriptions and other things that'll come as a result of it. What the heck do you do? How many people can handle that? Okay? Now, if you get a real serious situation, you could hit 500,000. So then somebody dies of some dread disease or horrible heart or lung or kidney or something problem. They ran up a $500,000 bill. And they owe $100,000. And they could come after the estate, I believe, when the person dies. It's just a lousy, stinking system. And Obama set it up so the working people, the people that are not into his lifestyle, with Big Mike and being a Muslim and all this other stuff, not into his lifestyle, are going to support his bringing in to the United States immigrants that are of his lifestyle and religion, and let them enter illegally and then make them legal and give them free health care. So if you had a guy working, okay, and he had 3 or 4 kids or something. And let's just say the wife wasn't working and he's working. He's got to pay that if he wants that insurance. He's got to pay 800 a month for himself plus 800 a month for his wife. It doesn't discount. Now, they both could be high earners in Social Security and pull, you know, I think they can get about $3,300 a month. I'm guessing that's the high now. So they could get 6,600 a month if the both of them. Well, it's not going to come that high because they're together. So they probably would be getting, as a guess, 4,500, maybe 5,000. We'll be generous and say 4,700. Let's. So down out of that 4,700, they got 1,600 going out for the health insurance. That leaves them 3,000. So what can they do? They could spend a lot of their older years sitting in doctor's offices, okay, for endless hours, and going into hospitals for all kinds of crackpot procedures and running up a huge bill. I know some people that are in their 90s that do this, and they're in their 90s, and they're doing it, and I don't know how they like sitting in doctors' offices all the time, but one of them still drives, although not distances, and they're living independently, so maybe they're getting somewhere with all this help from the allopathic medical system. I don't know. I imagine they're taking a lot of drugs and having a lot of tests, and then they get procedures. You know, they do that in Israel. If you want to have that kind of lifestyle, they'll be happy. The healthcare system is happy to do it with you, where every few months you're going to go down there and they're going to draw 2 syringes of blood. I did this once. They draw 2. They run so much blood work. In America, the blood work would probably be 10, 15, $20,000. They run urine, they run stool, they run that, and then they'll do X-rays and they'll do scans. And, they burn money up, and we don't have a deductible in the hospital. They have a cap as to how much they'll spend per person, but they don't have any deductible in the hospital. So when you get out of the hospital, you didn't pay for your food, you didn't pay for your bed, you didn't pay for your medicines. When you get out and you have your prescriptions and you go to get your medicines, right, they charge for most of the medicines on the plan that I have. It's 15% we pay. Now, there are some drugs where you might have to shell out $150 because it's a super expensive drug. I've never had a drug. I don't use the system. I pay into it because it's the law. And because I'm retired and we don't work, it costs us about $350 a year for everything. Family practice doctors are free. You don't pay any deductible. Specialists can charge you a maximum of what breaks down to about $10 every 3 months. That's the most they can get out of you for copay every 3 months. So if you're seeing a dermatologist or an orthopedic surgeon, they can get a maximum of like $40 a year if you keep going to them all the time. What the rats do is they see you and then they tell you to come back in 90 days so they could hit you up again with the $10. I'm serious. It's not a good system. But I don't know of any country in the world that has a good system. Now, maybe Norway or Switzerland or, you know, other countries have good systems. I don't know. Finland might. I don't have any idea. Okay? There might be some European or Scandinavian countries that actually do have a good healthcare system. I think Japan has a good one. I think. Um, you know, in America, there's a tremendous amount of people that get horrible infections. Many times they die if they're old and frail from surgery in the hospital. What they do in Japan, and they've done this for 50 years maybe, when they start a new surgery, they have like, it's sort of like an aluminum foil thing they open up in the operating room, and it covers the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Okay? So all the spores from what the doctors call dirty surgeries with bad infections, the stuff gets in the air and it gets in the walls, the floor, the lights, all that stuff, and that's where I've been told the infections come from. Then you get opened up, and the air from the air conditioning or the heating is blowing, and it blows it in there. So one big problem is the air ducts in operating rooms. So a lot of plastic surgeons don't go to take their surgeries in the hospital unless it's some kind of very serious surgery. They prefer to do it in their office. Why? Because in their office, they don't do what's called dirty surgery. They won't do it in the office because they know it's going to contaminate the ceiling, the walls, and the air ducts. So the Japanese reduce the risk tremendously by putting this covering in the entire operating room. Okay? Now, I know of some countries that really keep their operating rooms clean of a lot of things. Like, they don't want anybody walking in there unless they have shoe covering on. They don't want you bringing germs from the street in the operating room, right? And that's a good, smart thing. I don't think it goes on in American operating rooms that often. It does go on, but most of the time they're wearing the shoe coverings so blood and other fluids don't get on them. That's why they're wearing them, to protect their shoes. They don't force it. It's not good system. And Israel doesn't do what the Japanese do either. So, you know, um, what they will do, those big operating room lights, they'll wipe those with a disinfectant, an effective disinfectant. And they'll wipe the light switch, and the instruments, of course, are sterilized. And they wipe down the bed you lay on when you have surgery. They wipe that up pretty good, so nothing happens there. And, it's much worse in America than other places. So I do not think the doctors in Israel are that good, okay? And I don't think they're that good in most of the countries of the world. Now, again, I don't know where there could be some countries where they do a good job. Maybe Taiwan does. I have no idea. Maybe South Korea does. I'm at a loss. I absolutely don't know. I don't go checking on this stuff, but I heard Japan's pretty good. I also heard that if you're in Japan as a resident or something like that, and you need to go to the hospital for something, even if it's serious, they just take you in and don't charge you. So they might be running a social welfare system. See, what they can do is they could just take the general tax revenue from a country, right, and run a healthcare system for it just for the citizens. But instead, they prefer to make your health care an extra tax. So when you're paying for your health care, you should be thinking about it as an extra tax. I know people don't like that because they've been brainwashed by the governments, but it's a tax. You know, when Israel first started their healthcare system, people didn't pay anything. You were a citizen or a permanent resident, you needed to go to the doctor, you just went to the doctor. There was no copay, you didn't pay for your insurance, and you didn't pay for your prescriptions. You didn't pay for anything. Then, like all the rotten governments under Satan, which this is one of, they started, with getting people to pay, and they escalated it up. Now, I think if you're working in a job, first thing you have to understand is your employer pays, not you. So I think, somebody that's middle-aged and working, and I don't know how much it would be, probably 500, I don't know, maybe 100 to $150, $200 a month, I'm guessing, something like that. If you have a bunch of kids, they charge you extra for the first kid and maybe the second kid. I think they changed it. It used to be just the first kid. Then the second kid pays a little bit, and then if you got 11 kids, you pay the same price as somebody with 1 or 2 kids. They don't charge you for that. And the government also gives you money every month, direct deposit for every kid you have. Yeah. I don't know what it is anymore, but it used to be if you had 8 kids, they would give you enough money that you didn't have to work. So your job was stay-at-home parents. If that's the kind of life you wanted, you could have it. You just got to bang the kids out. That takes a number of years, but as you accumulate more kids, you get more and more benefits, and I believe your taxes go down also. More kids you have, you get less taxes. Okay, so the Hamas in Gaza have threatened to kill the hostages live on camera, which means the internet, as we go into Gaza City, which we've already started doing. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And Turkey said they're not going to conduct trade with Israel, and they're not going to let any flights go over Israel. And that's just an over-exaggeration. What really happened, and I'll get into that with you in a little bit. And I'm going to go right now and check the live stream to see what's going on, and if we got a live stream and sound and picture, and put a post up.
Why all the talk about September?
And then we'll get going. What's going on with this thing? Oh, great. Well, it looks like we're in good shape. Let's test it. Well, it looks, I guess we're on Labor Day weekend. You got poisoned with a melon from Walmart. Must have been rotten inside, I guess. Minimar, wow. Okay, that's unusual. Okay, I'm going to put my post up. One post. It's going to take a very small amount of time. Okay, I've got that pinned up. All right. Being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. Kamala Harris and Trump, interesting development. As you know, she was a vice president. She's not in office. And she, by law, gets Secret Service protection for 6 months unless the president extends it. So Joe Biden, when he was president, extended her Secret Service protection by an additional year. I think that's about all they usually do. And Trump revoked it. So she's basically without Secret Service protection, and she's about ready to go on some sort of speaking tour. I think she's selling some kind of book or something. So that's going to be a little bit difficult for her to do because she's going to have to get private security, and that's very costly. Good people are not going to be $200 or $300 a day. They're going to be, good people at that level, $700 a day. You're going to need a handful of them. So I don't know what she's going to do. Secret Service has armored cars. They protect the house. All this is over, so her house isn't protected, nothing. So she's got a problem. Biden can't help her. Biden did an executive order for it, and Trump reversed it, and I don't think anybody's going to do anything about that. She could file with the Supreme Court and say Trump had no right to reverse it or something, but I doubt she will, and I think the Supreme Court would probably not hear the case. They would just get out of it. So I'd say that's an example of Trump getting even, wouldn't you? I would think it is. The tariff thing's going to put a lot of shipping on hold because people are going to be waiting for the tariffs to be removed. So a lot of people are going to postpone ordering stuff from overseas if they're affected by high tariffs. The nations are going to be very glad and happy this happened. And it's going to belittle Trump further in the eyes of the people. He's going to have a lower degree of what I'll call street creds. That's the rapid term, you know. So he doesn't even have power to wage tariff wars anymore. The chances of him being able to keep doing the tariffs is very, very small. Let me get you the Constitution on this. It shouldn't be too difficult to get it. I'll get AI, pull it up.